Okay, so we'll do. This will be an interesting one, I think.
As opposed to the rest of it.
Yeah, we'll get you guys talking finally. Yeah. If you could, it's not even necessarily a consensus, but just kind of maybe analyze one another's choices. 45 presidents. If you can give me your top president, the whoever, in whatever regard, objective or subjective, also the worst, and then where are you going to put Trump in there? Just an official ranking, 1 through 45. Who's your number 1? Who's your 45? And where is Trump?
You want to start with tops or bottoms first? It's a weird question to ask a straight.
Yeah. Let's say, let's start with top.
Okay. This is the problem being young. Is like I've been alive for a lot of presidents because a lot of our presidents served 2 terms. Historically, based on like what I've read and what I understand, I would say tops are probably Kennedy, Carter, or Obama for me. Would be up there. I'd say Obama probably is my top president ever, but also I'm 29 and I'm willing to accept other historical answers that I was not alive for and don't appreciate the impact of.
Do you want both top?
Yeah,
number 1 and from one person and then one person, or do you want best, worst?
Yeah, let's go to all 3 from 1 and then all 3 from it.
I would. Again, I guess like worst president ever is difficult. Andrew Johnson's probably up there. Yeah, I'd probably say either Johnson or Trump would be my picks. If you're, I guess your third question, where do I rate Trump? Is like near the bottom of the list. Like he's bottom 5. There's some other. Yeah, like pretty much all of our presidents pre-1865 are pretty abhorrent if you're a black person. You know what I mean? Like, y'all trying to own and kill us. Like, I wasn't super into that. John Quincy Adams is all right. I guess he's an abolitionist at one point. Like, there's a few good ones. But, like, by and large, it's not a great run. So, yeah, I'd say Trump's probably above a handful of them probably, but still pretty close to the bottom of my list.
I mean, our top president for me is Trump. Like, I feel like, I think that he's done the most, like, stuff for African Americans than any president in history. I think, like,
including LBJ, who signed the
Civil Rights Act.
Or Kennedy, who gave up his life in support of it.
I like you and me and some everything because like you and me and some everything they were they pretty much Lyndon B. Johnson only did that like you and me and stuff to get black people to vote Democrat. So like you and me and stuff everything is quoted as saying like you know what I'm saying and be voting.
I'm not saying LBJ. He's low on my list.
For the next 40 years.
Microphone test. Sorry. Give me 1 second. Oh, there. Can you say something to Jesse?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Testing.
Louder.
Testing.
One more.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. Sorry.
And real quick, if you could go your worst and then also where Trump ranks in that, and then you guys can.
So Trump number 1, right?
Yeah. So Trump's number 1, and the worst president I would say is Barack Obama. I feel like like when he was president, he really didn't do anything for black people, like and stuff and everything. Like I think that his policies and stuff and everything, like continue to create like welfare dependency for the African American community, and his policies and stuff and everything weren't helpful to the African American community at all.
So, yeah.
Open discussion.
Yeah, and if you could relate it specifically to the context of presidents in history.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, as we talked about at the top, I guess, like, we have vastly differing opinions on how much Trump has done for black people. One of the things you pointed out, the highest mark you gave him is for a record low of black unemployment. It is worth noting that black unemployment was at a record low when Obama left office as well. So if you think he's the worst president ever and Trump has marginally improved on what he had already done, I don't know how he's the worst president ever or Trump is the best president ever. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me if that's the argument that you're making. It's like, who's done the most for black people? That one's tough for me to wrap my head around. I guess looking at all the other aspects of Trump's presidency, I don't see any real positives of the Trump era. We've turned over the government almost entirely, the positions that he ever filled in the first place. Most of the government currently is still unstaffed. We've made a mockery of America on an international stage. Most of the world no longer respects our authority. We're continuing regime change wars across the country or across the world. We're entering into conflicts all the time over petty bullshit. We have one finger on the nuclear button at all times. I don't know what about this era has made you feel better or safer about being an American.
I think actually I disagree except that we're a mockery. I think actually the Trump being president, countries respect us a lot more on the international stage.
That is demonstrably false.
I don't think
every leader of an allied country that we've been allies with for literally the length of my lifetime has at some point spoken out against Trump or at least mocked his derangement in office.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I think
Germany, France, Canada, England, Ireland.
I think Donald Trump is and everything. He is he's done what he said he was going to do, and everything. Being when he ran, I think he really is making our country and everything better. I think there are more.
He hasn't done any of the things he said he was going to do. He didn't build a wall. He didn't drain the swamp. He doesn't make America great. Do you feel like America's great?
I do feel like America was great, but I don't feel like that Trump made America great. I felt America was great before Trump, but I feel and stuff Trump as president, he's done a good job as president. And stuff overall, and stuff with the economy.
No, I don't know what you mean. You keep saying overall, you know what I mean. I don't know what you mean.
Overall, he's done an excellent job as president. I think that number one, and stuff everything, the economy. You
keep coming back to this vague idea of the economy because of record unemployment. You just told me Obama was the worst president of all time, who also had record lows of unemployment. So clearly that can't be that high of a mark in your book.
And stuff everything. I think that there were also periods during Obama's presidency and stuff everything where the country was doing very badly. And stuff everything where there were record highs of unemployment.
Well, when he took office and took over the recession that he inherited from George W. Bush. Yes, those were bad times, and then he remarkably turned around the entire country.
I don't think that necessarily falls on and stuff just George W. Bush. I think you have to take into factor this little event that happened called 9/11, and
So 9/11 in 2001 led to the recession in 2007.
I think there's definitely evidence that they could draw.
I would say there's more evidence that you could draw a conclusion that invading Iraq for no apparent reason, based on false intelligence, which was George W. Bush's idea, and that he pitched to the entire American people. I'd say that probably has something to do with the recession that we went through. Or is that not on him either?
I'm not.
Iraq war's under Bush?
No, I'm not saying that. Obviously, and stuff.
Which had more to do with the recession?
I believe that September 11th, obviously, probably had more to do with the recession because of you don't think that September 11th, and stuff caused and stuff everything. There's the world we lived in before September 11th and the world after. You don't see a stark difference in the American public's trust of and stuff everything. And the safety and the fear of living in this country.
What's any of that got to do with jobs?
It has a lot to do with jobs, I believe, because
the economy was stronger after 2001 than it had been in decades before that, with the exception of the Clintons. Fear and panic and terror is great for the American economy. It's what we've been built on for most of our existence, at least especially post-World War. That's why we go to war every decade, because it's the best thing for our economy. Drumming up fear, drumming up ideas of terrorism, drumming up ideas of insurgency. Everybody go out and buy a gun, buy something American-made, buy something that represents this country. It's the best thing you can do for the country. Our economy was booming in 2003. Then we repealed Glass-Steagall. We let people speculate on other people's mortgages, and then we tanked the housing market. And that was all under Bush as well. So then we inherited a recessed economy, turned it around to record unemployment for black people, passed gay marriage along the way, got rid of don't ask, don't tell, turned around the economy. What's bad? What part of that was bad for people? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, what makes Trump the worst president?
Okay, so like, you know what I mean, some everything. I feel like Barack Obama, like, you know what I mean, he just didn't do, like, you know what I mean, very much for the African American community. Like, if you can point to me specific, like, you know, policies that he did, like, you know what I mean, and stuff that I think, like, you know, the only thing that he did, like, you know what I mean, and stuff and everything, like, he has a great image. He's a great orator. Like, I think, like, you know what I mean, as far as, like, you know, the idea of, like, you know, his family is great, like, you know what I mean, for young African Americans to see an African American president, but like his policies don't show me, like, you know what I mean, things.
So his policies that made, for instance, school lunches healthier, so that black kids were making sure that they were in impoverished areas getting resources to balance meals. That's not improving the black community.
Oh, like, you know what I mean, and some everything. You're talking about school lunches, so there weren't school lunches before that.
Not healthy ones because they weren't regulated by the government to make sure that they had fucking ketchup classified as a vegetable. Your boy Trump got rid of that program to make sure we could reclassify ketchup as a vegetable. In fact, that's one of the great things he's done for the black.
Isn't ketchup made from tomatoes? Like, I mean, like I'm
it is indeed.
And to specify on that point, Trump has been president for 2 point however many years. Why exactly is he all the way to the top of your list and all the way to the bottom of your list? And only that amount of time. We debate about 8 years of Obama.
That's fair.
How on earth did he get that level of polarization? What do you identify Trump with success and failure?
The biggest failure for me is being unable to staff the administration. Like, most of the key roles of the administration either don't have people in them or have people acting in them because he can't get who he wants into those roles for long enough that he can stay positive on them. I don't know exactly what's up with his ego that makes that happen, but if you can't functionally run the government, then you're not a good president. And if you can't staff the government, you're not functionally running the government. It's very simple. Like, there's a lot more to it. I disagree with him personally about a lot of things, but as far as like his ability to lead, he functionally can't lead the country. That's obvious.
I mean, I don't think that's obvious. I think he's shown that he has, like, you know, amazing ability to lead, and he's instilled the confidence in me. I think, like, the economy is, like, you know, great. Like, you know, instead of everything, my portfolio in the stock market is doing excellent. Like, you know, since he's been president, I think, like, you know, that, you know, we've seen some record highs. It's been a volatile market, but like, I think that he's doing, like, you know, a great job as president. I'm happy with, like, you know, the leadership that he's brought to this country. So,
can I ask one thing as well too? So speaking of economy, thoughts on the U.S.-China trade.
Complicated mess, generally speaking. I think what's ended up happening with, like, the farming bill is a mess and a catastrophe that we don't have much of a plan on how we're going to pay that back. As somebody who doesn't put a lot of value in, like, the value of currency that isn't backed by anything to begin with, I don't see it as big of an issue as a lot of other non-Trump supporters do. Again, like I said before, I'm wildly ignorant when it comes to matters of foreign policy, so I'm sure it's a much bigger deal than I give credit for. But it's one of those things that I kind of look at and it's like, those are the ills I'm willing to just kind of accept are part of American government leadership. And Trump's not much of a change in that direction.
Like, because there were talks about, like, stopping China IP and things like that. What are your thoughts of this U.S.-China trade? I'll call it war, tariff, whatever you call it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, that, you know, it's one of those things that's very complicated and stuff and everything. I don't have, like, anything really to add, like, you know, that would be of value to that conversation.
In general, if you had to vote on it, are you for or against the trade war, specifically with China, not the other ones they started or anything, but U.S. and China, our positions in the world? Are you for?
There's for or against the trade wars.
I would say Trump's relations with China in general. Is that a net positive compared to just even Obama, or a negative?
I judge it again, like, fairly ignorantly. I would say it's mostly a net negative. I think the position that he's taken is in my eyes, kind of an 80s or 90s traditionally, like, masculine position of, like, you must present strength at every negotiation and every deal. I don't think that ever was a quality way to operate. I especially don't think in modern times it is. And I think that's kind of been his approach in China is like, we're going to tariff and tax and bleed them out as much as that we can. And then the country with more resources will eventually, win in this negotiation. I not only think that's a bad way to do politics, but I also am not necessarily sold that we have the wherewithal to win that sort of trade war. Like, I think the way China is currently set up, where the government backs most of its quote-unquote private companies that do business in international markets and can compete, I think they have the resources to sustain that kind of long-term bleeding a lot more than we do, simply because we have a free market.
So I believe, like, one of the reasons and stuff and everything that I have a lot of respect for Trump is because, like, he is standing up to China. And I think, like, as far as like how I understand it and stuff and everything, like, previous administrations and stuff and everything never, called these leaders and stuff and everything to set up negotiations and stuff and everything for tariffs and things of that nature and stuff and everything. And we just like pretty much accepted their agreements and, the fact that he's like negotiating stuff and everything on the part to help America. So like I'm for it,
So then last thing on Trump, just a number score, 0 to 100, 100 being positive, perfect, whatever. What would you give his presidency if you want to compare it just in a vacuum or compared to the other ones, 0 to 100?
I'll give him a 97.
Well, and then what do you think is the 3% that the 3 points? What is he missing?
Well, the 3% is like, I think he could do a better job of like, unifying like, all Americans. Like, I think that he, like a lot of times and stuff and everything you hear on the media and stuff and everything that, he's a white supremacist and a nationalist and stuff and everything, but he's gone on record a number of times where he's disavowed white supremacy, he's disavowed, like, and stuff and everything, David Duke and like, media outlets and stuff and everything still like, and stuff say like, and stuff that he's like a white supremacist. But like, I think like, and stuff, like how much negative media coverage that he gets. But like, I take away maybe like the 3% because like, and stuff, some of the statements that he makes are so polarizing and like, and stuff and everything. It makes it harder for everyone to feel inclusive in America. So
that's only worth 3% to you?
Yeah, it's only worth 3% to me. Like, and stuff and everything, because I feel like, that I don't feel like, and stuff and everything that, there's been statements and stuff and everything that he's made, but like there's also been things and stuff that he said that isn't like, covered on mainstream media outlets. Like, he's disavowed, like, white supremacy, like, and stuff, but like the media will like hype up, like, and stuff when he says, like, and stuff and everything. There's good people, there are good people on both sides in the Charlottesville incidents and stuff and everything. I feel like there's a lot of like biased journalism, like, and stuff and everything, like, on both sides.
How's that bias?
Because like, and stuff and everything, like, but do you know that he's disavowed white supremacy?
I also know that he did that in almost all instances after a moment in which some white supremacists, both either invoking his name or other white supremacist values, and then somebody had to pull his coattails and ask him to come out publicly and disavow it. I know that as well. Do you?
Like, I'm sure, like, and stuff and everything. Like, I think, no, I've seen like remarks and stuff and everything that he said like about David Duke and stuff and everything. Nobody said
the reason he disavowed David Duke is because David Duke came out and endorsed him.
Right, like, and stuff and everything.
And then he took several days before he even disavowed him, saying that I used to think David Duke was a really decent guy. Those are also quotes.
You realize, like, nobody thought, like, Trump was racist and stuff and everything until he became president.
That
like,
also
and stuff and everything. That's
he was charged for racial discrimination in the 70s.
About his housing and stuff and everything, and like, and stuff and everything.
Casinos in Atlantic City where he discriminated against black accounts. He's been racist for a long time.
Like, has he really been racist? Like,
yes.
You're saying, like,
He lost a multi-million-dollar lawsuit based on racial discrimination.
I mean,
what's more racist than discriminating against people and then being sued to be able to be held accountable?
I mean, just because you're sued for something doesn't mean, like, and stuff that, like, the judge was correct. I think, like, to be honest and stuff and everything, Donald Trump, like, and stuff, if you look at, like, and stuff, his time before he before he was president, like, you know, nobody was saying like he was racist, like, you know what I mean, and stuff in mainstream media, and you know, like, you know what I mean, and stuff everything, like, you know, you look at, like, you know what I mean, and stuff everything, and being invited, getting, like, you know, the real estate award, like, you know, that it were alongside, like, Maya Angelou, and, like, you know what I mean, and stuff everything, like, a number of
yes, he used to be a celebrity, posed for a photo op or two with some black people. Good on him.
I mean, it's like you're saying, like, you know what I mean, it's like you're kind of like minimizing and stuff, everything, the fact though that nobody
minimizing him hanging out with Maya Angelou compared to him discriminating against black people and having to pay millions of dollars in it. Yeah.
Okay, so but like if that was the case and stuff, everything, then, like, you know what I mean, and stuff, everything, why wasn't anyone talking about it then? Like, you know what I mean? And
Why
stuff,
do you think I
everything.
know about it? It's published with the papers all over the place. It was the fucking 80s. There was no internet. The mainstream media, as you know it today, did not exist. What are you talking about? There was no cable, let alone cable news.
Like, I mean, I don't feel like, you know what I mean, and stuff,
It was
everything,
talked
like,
about at great length. That's why we can source it now, because it's 40 years later. We can still source how much coverage there was of it then. That's the reason I know about it. I'm 29. I wasn't even alive when that
I
happened.
don't know, like, I've heard, like, you know what I mean, and stuff, everything, different accounts, like, you know what I mean, and stuff, from a lot of different African American figures and stuff, everything, where, like, you know what I mean, and stuff, their interactions with him. He's one of the few people and stuff, everything, like, you know, Mike Tyson, he gives, like, a great story where, like, you know what I mean, and stuff, like Donald Trump and stuff, everything, anytime he would see him and stuff, everything, he would come up to him and stuff, shake his hand and stuff, everything, say, like, you know what I mean, and stuff, everything, hi to his family and stuff, everything, treat him like a human being, where someone like Hillary Clinton and stuff, he sees her, she wouldn't even acknowledge him in public. You know what I mean? And stuff, everything, look down and stuff, everything.
You know,
And, like,
you
you know,
that too? Dennis Rodman. You know what he says about Kim
What?
Jong-un?
Like,
You cool with him? He's doing a great job too?
I mean, like, Dennis Rodman and stuff, everything. I'm not saying, like, that.
If you're gonna say Dennis Rodman's opinion isn't valid, Mike Tyson.
I'm not saying that Dennis Rodman's opinion is not valid. I mean, I think, like,
I'm not saying it is either.
I mean,
but it's as valid as Mike Tyson's.
No, but, like, you know what I mean, and stuff, everything, like Kim Jong Un, like, you know, and stuff, everything, like, that's like I don't know, like, you know what I mean, and stuff, necessarily how North Korea is run, like, you know what I mean, and stuff, but, like, a lot of the ways and stuff, everything, like, I believe that it is, like, you know what I mean, and stuff, he's a dictator, like, you know what I mean, and stuff, his policy and stuff, everything, like, you know what I mean, and stuff, influence you about who he is. That doesn't mean, like, he's a bad.
He treats black people like people.
I
especially
think,
high-profile celebrities who he
I
meets
think when you're
and could use a
talking
photo op
when
with.
you're talking about, like, you know what I mean, and stuff, everything, like, race. I mean, I don't think Donald Trump was doing that necessarily for photo ops, like, you know what I mean, and stuff, everything. I think, like, you know what I mean, and stuff, he's just a genuinely nice person. I haven't seen any photo ops, like, you know what I'm saying, with him and Mike Tyson. I'm sure there are probably online and stuff, everything.
Donald
But, like,
Trump's photo op with everybody on the planet. His favorite thing in the world to do is appear in the media.
So maybe-
So to shift over to that, what would your score be of Trump?
I give him some points for being a great manipulator. I give him some points for being a great marketer. I give him some points on knowing how the game is played. So I guess like 25, 30, something like that, 40.
And what would be the
Well, 25 to 40 is a big. What is
No, I don't know, somewhere around there. Like
25 to 40?
yeah, okay, call it 33. I guess.
33, okay.
And what's the most significant chunk of the negative of, like, all of that space to 100
His incompetence.
is the incompetency?
Like, he can't complete a sentence. If you watch him speak unedited, if you watch him not in like an edited video clip or not in like remarks that were transcribed, if you just watch him free flow speak, and not in like a rally or something, you just ask him a question, he can't complete an answer. He can't complete a sentence. He just rambles around and says things like, well, you know, it's the Democrats and corruption and corruption and corruption and those guys, and I'm great. America's great. Everything's great. Good night. And that's the answer.
I think that's a lot of hyperbole. Like, you know, I think he's a great orator. I think Donald Trump is, like, an excellent speaker. Like, I really do. I think he's really funny. I think, like, he has some really great anecdotes, and, like, I mean, he does a good job of, like, you know, getting people and stuff, everything, like, riled up about America.
So then, I'm not sure how to put a numerical value on it. The 2016 election, how does Hillary compare to Trump? If Trump, regardless, super success, super failure, where, not hypothetically, what would her presidency look like, but up until that point, November 2016, as a candidate, both of them as untested presidents, how does she compare to him?
You know what, like, you know what I mean, and stuff, everything. I would never vote for Hillary and stuff and everything. And I think like a lot of times and stuff, people like, like they like to say that Donald Trump's racist and stuff and everything, and Hillary Clinton was clearly racist. I think like, the remarks she made, like, and stuff and everything about like, blacks being super predators. I think like that, like, and stuff and everything. Like, I think if you're saying like, and stuff, let's say for sake of argument that Donald Trump is racist, so is Hillary Clinton. By any measure, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are both racist, like and stuff and everything. I think the less racist of the two would be Donald Trump. I think the Clintons were corrupt. I think like, they have a history of corruption. I think like, I just feel like, and stuff, the legacy, like, and stuff, everything of Bill Clinton's presidency doesn't instill trust in Hillary Clinton being president.
Aren't you just talking about how Trump's your favorite president because of the economy? Bill Clinton's economy is the best economy in your lifetime.
True.
By literally every measure.
No, but true indeed. But like, here's the problem. It's everything like, the legacy of corruption, like, and stuff, everything in their presidency. They're not honest politicians. Number one, like, and stuff, they're corrupt. Also, like, and stuff, everything. There's a number of corruptions and stuff, everything in the Clinton White House, like, and stuff, everything. I would go. They've murdered people. They've literally like murdered people, like, and stuff, everything. Like, anyone who has ever came out, like, and stuff, everything that had like evidence against the Clintons,
So
like, and stuff, has been murdered.
Clinton went out and shot somebody.
I think that they definitely like they never like I think they had fixers and stuff, everything that probably did these jobs for them. I think like the Clintons are very corrupt,
like a Michael Cohen type fixer, like pays off people and takes care of problems.
Like and stuff, everything. I believe like the Clintons are probably like and stuff, one of the most corrupt families ever to like and stuff be in Washington D.C. I think that Donald Trump and stuff, everything like that.
Supposed to the guy in the White House with his legal immigrant's wife. Gotcha.
Donald Trump, like and stuff, everything. I feel like his wife, like and stuff, everything is not an illegal immigrant. As far as I know, like I've never like
she came here being an aggravated in the chain migration process. She wanted to get rid of it.
I mean,
That's how she immigrated to the country. That's a fact.
Like, is she a U.S. citizen now?
Yeah.
Yes, she's a United States citizen. So, like, I mean, as far as like,
just before they changed the laws.
I mean, like you could say like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like and stuff, and everything. He like didn't come to this country like legally. You're okay with you want to bring up the idea of illegal immigration being a problem, like saying, as it applies to Trump. But like, when I bring it into like and stuff, and everything, like it's not a problem though, like I'm saying. In African American communities, apparently, but like and stuff. When I bring it up, like and stuff about it applying to Trump and stuff, and everything, you want to say like, oh, like his wife like is here illegally. I mean, I'm just trying to
hold your babes to your standards.
I think
you're
like
telling me immigration is the problem with the country, and you're cool with the president marrying an illegal immigrant.
Like and stuff. I'm fine. Don't like and stuff, everything. When you marry someone, don't they automatically become a citizen? Like wasn't that the law previously?
Yeah.
As far so like and stuff, everything like. That isn't that like and stuff.
So she's here legally, and so since he decided to marry her, everything's cool.
You become a citizen, like that's how it used to be. Like,
so you have a problem with all those people who are currently here and unmarried. Like she came here on a work visa, the visa expired, she stayed here illegally for a long time, then they got married and she became a citizen. You have a problem with all those people who came here legally, overstayed their visa, and are currently here illegally.
I have a problem with people staying here and coming to this country illegally to exploit our resources as U.S. citizens.
But if they come here illegally, overstay their visa, hang out for a bit, and then exploit our resources by marrying one of the most powerful men in the country, that's perfectly okay.
I think like and stuff. I don't have a problem with that. No, like and stuff, and everything like basing. Yeah,
I have no problem with immigrants coming here. You seem to, and just.
I don't think like that Melania falls into the category of illegal immigrants that we're speaking on that are taking like as far as like resources and stuff and everything from. What do you mean? Like saying why is that? I mean,
why does she not fall into that category?
I don't think like and stuff. This is like I don't think like she's taking. I don't think she's taking jobs.
You don't think there are African women who want to be models? You don't think there are African American women who want to be cover models?
I don't think like that she would be taking any jobs from like and stuff and everything. Any of those those.
Why
those
not? She
women, I
appeared in all
definitely-
sorts of magazines.
I'm sure she did.
She didn't take any job, and none of those jobs would have went to American citizens.
Like you and me and stuff, everything. Like like now you're talking about like you and me and stuff, everything. Like
I'm talking about the position you hold.
I
and applying
do-
it to people you trust.
I'm talking about
I'm trying to
jobs
figure
and
out
stuff,
what you
everything, taking it from underprivileged, like poor communities.
There are plenty of poor, underprivileged models, and photographers, and videographers, and content creators. I'm one of them. I make 19 grand a year, my guy. But I am very impoverished.
I like you and me. I think that's but like you and me and stuff. You choose to work in that field, right? That's the field that you want to work in, right?
What?
Like so, like you're
So people choose to apply
Couldn't
to
you,
jobs.
you're a talented person and stuff, everything really intelligent. Couldn't you work in probably another field where you would make
You
more
had a
money?
college degree and couldn't get a job at Walmart. You were a very talented and qualified person as well, yes? You were
Yes.
saying the problem with that was the illegal immigrant.
I believe
Not the job you chose, not the place you wanted to
I
take
do
this job.
believe that the illegal immigration does
So
play
just
a
keep it
part.
consistent. Keep that same energy.
No, I mean, I don't think the issue is the same. Like, I feel like you and me and stuff, everything is totally different. That, like, the situation with Melania.
Immigrant
like,
comes over with a visa, overstays it, is now here
I
illegally.
think that's
That's the same. Goes and
I
gets a
don't-
job. That's the same.
I don't think
That
that's
job
the same
couldn't
at
go to an
all.
American citizen.
I don't think that's the same at all, and I don't think that's true necessarily. I would have to see like you and me and stuff, everything. There's no way. Like she's a citizen now, like you and me and stuff. So it's really no point like
Gotcha.
arguing
So
about
long
it
as
in
you came
hindsight.
here and you hung out illegally for as long as you could get away with it and became a citizen later, that's fine. So I got it. Well, I'm
not
not
even-
immigration. We're going to make everybody citizens.
I
Problem
think
solved. Doesn't that
that's
solve the problem?
no, it doesn't
Because
like
they're
you-
here legally, though. You're saying that the laws don't matter so long as it happens that somebody says it's legal.
No, I'm not
then it's
saying
okay.
I don't know, like you and me and stuff enough about like her specific path to citizenship.
So
What
let's not
I'm
talk about her
saying,
specifically. Let's talk about any woman who comes here from a foreign nation, decides to overstay her visa, is here for a number of years illegally, and then marries somebody and becomes a citizen. Is that okay with you?
I have no problem with it at all. I like you and me and stuff with that at all.
With other people who are here illegally
My
and aren't married, you have a problem.
problem with illegal immigration specifically is people coming over here to specifically exploit the resources of this country.
And I just
Like,
laid
you know,
out to you a
it's
scenario in which
specifically-
somebody's doing
I
that.
don't see that as somebody who's exploiting the resources of their country.
So
and
who do
taking
you see that
jobs.
way then?
I see people who are taking jobs in communities
Who are those people?
that are living in communities that would be living in my community and taking jobs from me and my peers.
So people, that's fine. So
That's-
illegal
that's-
immigration is fine so long as they don't live in black neighborhoods.
No, like you know what I mean, and some everything. Like
I'm just
that's-
trying to pin down where you are on this, my guy.
is like but that's part of it. But like you know, like specifically living in my community, like I have a problem, like you know what I mean, and stuff with illegal immigrants coming into my neighborhood, taking jobs away from like you know what I mean and stuff my community.
But if it's
That's
in
the
other
issue.
communities in this country, it's not an issue.
Yes, of course it
I
would,
just
but it would
laid
be an
out to you-
issue. It would be an issue for them. Like you know what I mean, I'm not
So
necessarily
it's a not my
concerned. I
problem
can.
thing. Gotcha. Okay.
We'll pause there. This is good. One more question.
Give me one sec.